Hey everybody, we're in Ogunquit, Maine, and this is the Ogunquit Heritage Museum right there. Let's go take a look. The Wynn House was built around 1780, probably by James Wynn Sr. The house is built around a central chimney with 4 fireplaces. Other features include wide floorboards, featherboard paneling, and original windows. There's an area which is the front parlor of the house, and in a corner here they have set up like mid-1800s to first part of the 20th century fishing shack. And Ogunquit has a little inlet called Perkins Cove, which this is to represent the fishing that used to take place there. And there's still lobster boats over there, but this is the way it looked in the old days.
Perkins Cove fishing shacks were conveniently built right next to the cove. Fishing tackle was stored here. Materials for repairing boats and repairing fishing tackle were also stored here. The Ogunquit dory was unique to its own village. In the late 1800s, William Henry Perkins built these boats for trawling and lobstering. They accommodated the rocky coast and strong tides. Ogunquit dories had a very wide beam allowing for lobster traps or extra trawling equipment. Each lobsterman's buoys display his own particular colors and pattern, which identifies his gear and his territory. Lobstermen are territorial about the bottom of the ocean. Here in the fishing shack, one can almost smell the weathered, salt-soaked, and dried boards. Smell the paints and chemicals used to preserve wooden boats. And smell the lobster bait, just now achieving that perfect odor that's so appealing to lobsters. English fishermen first settled around Perkins Cove in the 1620s. In the early years, this location was called Fish Cove. In the late 1800s, the Perkins family ran a boarding house called the Perkins Cove House. This is where the name Perkins Cove comes from. Today, people enjoy Perkins Cove for its lovely scenery, shops, and fresh seafood restaurants. Perkins Cove is one of Ogunquit's 3 jewels. Marginal Way is a scenic 1 1/4 mile cliff walk that wends its way from Perkins Cove to Ogunquit Village. Josiah Chase, Jr. donated Ogunquit's 2nd jewel to the town of Ogunquit in 1925. A walk along this path, lined with beach roses, bayberry, and thickets of bittersweet, evokes a smile and reinvigorates the soul. The Abenaki, Native Americans who occupied the southern coast of Maine, called this place Ogunquit, which means beautiful place by the sea. Three miles of white sand beaches are located where the Ogunquit River meets the sea. Early residents found the firm sand surface along the water's edge a smoother carriage ride than the road when traveling between Ogunquit and nearby wells. In the 1920s, the Ogunquit Beach District was formed to acquire Ogunquit Beach by eminent domain in order to preserve it as a public beach and as Ogunquit's third jewel. Since the 1890s, Ogunquit has been a destination for artists who sought the camaraderie of fellow artists and relief from the summer heat of the big city. At one point or another, Ogunquit hosted Robert Henri, George Bellows, Margaret Patterson, and Edward Hopper. Perkins Cove became the home of two well-known summer art schools. The first was founded in 1898 by Charles Woodbury and the other by Hamilton Field in 1911. Woodbury taught plein air classes, an outdoor classroom of landscapes and seascapes. Instruction at Field School was generally indoors and included painting, sculpture, and life drawing. We are back at the museum now. This is the Wynn House keeping room. During colonial times, the keeping room was a common place where people gathered to stay warm, eat, read, or do chores. How about lobster for supper? I invite you to see the Ogunquit Heritage Museum, where you may learn more about these stories. There's also many other interesting stories and artifacts to discover at this wonderful small town museum in Ogunquit, Maine.